Hello guys, welcome to my channel. I hope everything is okay in your life. This video series has been prepared for general features of the classes in BDO to be conveyed to you by the Classmasters in an appropriate way. The information contained in this video is limited and will not be a detailed guide. In the content you will meet, there will be an interview about the structure of the class in general. If you have friends around you who have questions about this class, they will probably be able to find general answers. The purpose of interview is to convey the class to you in a short and fun way. First, you will watch official trailer of the class, then we will start chatting with our guests. During the chat, I will add as many images as possible and try to provide you with a better information transfer. I hope you enjoy this content. All these and similar classes will be completed and published in time. If you do not want to miss the moment when they are published, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button. Enjoy watching. Well, hello, welcome guys. Today's guest is sOFrosty for Kunoichi class. Welcome, Frosty. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Thank you so much. So, may you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is sOFrosty, and I play BDO. I'm a Kuno main, but I re-roll a lot, so I played a lot of classes. I've been playing the game for about way too long. I started right when Dark Knight Awakening came out.
How did you find BDO? From a friend or website? How you go into MMORPG games? How did you decide to play this game?
So actually the first MMO I ever played was Ion, strangely enough, which is a Korean grindy MMO. And after I played Ion, I moved on to Terra. And then once I started getting bored of Terra, I was looking at Blade and Soul and BDO because I was just looking up MMOs. So I just found the games online and they both looked really fun. And my computer at the time couldn't run BDO. It was just way too laggy. So I ended up playing Blade and Soul, which is ironic now because now Blade and Soul feels so laggy compared to BDO. But so I started with Blade and Soul and then I swapped over to Black Desert Online after a little bit later. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of stuck to it. I got addicted to it.
We all addict to it.
Yeah.
How many years have you been playing your class? Is this your first class? Are there any other classes that you have started the game with or tried?
Yeah, so I started out on Tamer, actually. Then I swapped to Sork. So I played Tamer for a few months, and then I swapped to Sork, and I played Sork for a couple months, and then I went back and forth between those two. And then I played Kuno, and I've mostly been playing Kuno as my main, probably since the end of 2017, but I have re-rolled, like I said, a lot. So there's definitely been a couple months here and there where I played either Sork or Hash or whatever, but Kuno has always kind of been the main for a long time. It has my most playtime by a lot. It's not even close.
So which character is tagged right now in your character,
Hashashin.
in your family?
Hashashin for PvE, yeah, mostly, because I know we'll talk about it later, but because Kuno's PvE has been just 5 years of sadness.
Okay. Do you think your class is newbie friendly? How would you rate your class out of 10 in terms of difficulty, PvE and also PvP?
I actually do think it's fairly newbie friendly. I don't think that Kuno is that difficult to learn overall. I think there are elements to it that can be complicated at the high end, but just to get into the game and to do basic stuff like PvE, I think it's probably just an average difficulty class. It's not difficult. It's not Suck Nova, but or Awakened Guardian. But yeah, it's not hard to play either. So.
Do you prefer Awakening or Succession right now, and why?
Okay, so style-wise, I prefer Awakening and always kind of have, but Succession is really fun. And right now, I prefer Succession overall because I still think, even after the nerfs and even after the buffs that Awakening got, I still believe that Succession is a little bit better. And that's partly because of how quickly you can get damage off. The way BDO works, both in Solaire and like open world node war stuff, Succession damage itself is just like a premium, right? Like time to kill is a big thing. So the faster you kill, the more effective you're going to be. And I think Succession Kuno still just does that better than Awakening. For PvE, Succession is a little bit better than Awakening. So I don't even think you can play Awakening in PvE, but even still, I end up using Hashashin mostly for PvE anyway.
I remember those nerfs on Succession because Succession was extremely broken, and the only meta boys cry about that. They all cry. They said the class is dead. When I saw that nerfs, I said that if you are really proper or above proper Kunoichi player, I think these nerfs are just for meta boys. And you guys are you guys are definitely proving it, because when I encounter against Succession Kunoichi, I'm still just waiting to die.
Okay, so here I'll say this: the nerfs in general were definitely warranted. The class was way too strong. They lowered the cooldown of Flash Slash, increased the damage of Flash Slash. They also made, during the reworks, they also made it so you can move twice during Flash Slash. They made Shadow Explosion protected, lowered the cooldowns on a bunch of abilities. So overall, the class was just way too protected, way too safe. Had essentially an infinite protected CC / protected mobility rotation. So it absolutely needed to be nerfed. I do still think that they went one change too far. It could be anything. Like I've discussed this with Nihilus and Rizi, who are both Suck Kunos that are very, very good and I respect very much. One of the stamina changes, I think, was too far, and you can pick literally any of them. Either the Tendon Cutter one, the Flash Slash one, Dance Macabre one, it doesn't really matter, but one of them is too much and should be reverted slightly, because they also increased the cooldown of Flash Slash. They nerfed the stamina on 4 abilities and locked the stamina on a 5th ability. So it was just all in one patch. It was kind of too much, in my opinion. I do think Suck Kuno struggles because of that. While I do think Suck Kuno is super deadly in the first 10 seconds of a fight, I think any knowledgeable player, when they're fighting a Kuno, know how to fight a Kuno. And Armin talks about this all the time on his stream when he's streaming AOS. Any knowledgeable player knows, like, okay, I just have to survive for the first 10 seconds. After I see the second Tendon Cutter, you know that the Kuno is out of stamina and you can just run him down.
I understand.
But the problem is right now, because Kuno's not a popular class, a lot of the meta re-rollers rolled off, and a lot of the players that mained Kuno don't even play it anymore. People don't see it much, so in the first 10 seconds, they still die because they just don't have any clue how to defend themselves.
You know why I published a PvE tier list video on YouTube? May you please analyze this Kunoichi page?
So in terms of the star rating that you gave, I think the early game for Awakening is fine. Crowded spots is, I'm not exactly sure, but whatever. End game spots for Awakening, I feel I completely disagree. I think that should be 2 stars. I think Awakening is one of the worst PvE classes in the entire game right now, Awakening Kuno. Mobility is fine. Maybe it could be even higher because its mobility is quite good. And then durability is probably just average. It has okay sustain. And then for Succession, early game is fine, crowded is fine, end game is fine, mobility is fine. Yeah, I agree with most of it, except for durability. Succession's actually a little bit easier to survive with than Awakening because of the way the rune system works. You actually recover HP on a lot of your abilities on Succession, so it's quite easy to live on that class. And then tankiness is just average.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about her PvE in details. May you please give us a bit information about Awakening PvE? Early game spots, mid game spots, like you need to pull mob Zakkary stars and bloody monastery orbs and etc. And end game spots, you know, Gaifin, Olun, Hexa, Trolls, maybe even Crypt. I don't know if you tested it, but maybe even Crypt.
So with Awakening at early game spots, she's very good because she's fast and she has a lot of abilities, so you can just rotate through them. So any one-shot spots, she's actually quite good. It's once you get to Star's End and above where she starts really falling off, because she doesn't have a great pole skill. You have to double jump and throw a kunai, which is actually on Awakening even worse than Succession. It feels a little bit slower, but it's also, you're not always in pre-Awakening, and it doesn't always make sense to be in pre-Awakening because some of your mobility is in Awakening too. So you also have to C-swap just to do the pull. And then her damage overall is just not great. Her single target damage isn't great. Her AoEs are small on most of her abilities. She has a couple of skills like Spin Spree and Lunatic Discus that hit decently hard with decent AoE, but the rest of the kit, Lunar Dash, Chakram Rise, Flow Indignation, they're all very, very small AoEs and don't do much damage. Flow Wrath has a decent AoE but does no damage. Her damage overall and her AoEs just hurt her a lot at high-end spots. You really start feeling it at Zakkary, but if you go to Hex or Orcs or do Trolls or Gyfin, Awakening feels really, really bad. At least to me. And then in terms of crit, like she basically has 100% crit on all of her abilities. Nowadays, it's either 50% or 100%. So even on the skills that don't have it, you still have pretty high PvE crit on Awakening Kuno across the board. So crit's not really a big factor. And also her E buff isn't very big for PvE either.
So may you please give us a bit information about Awakening PvP, 1v1 potential, 1vx, Arena Solar 5v5, and Node Siege Force?
Yeah, so 1v1, I think Awakening Kuno is actually very, very good. And part of the reason is because she has good mobility, she has decent catches, she has a grab. Her grab's pretty hard to react to because she has multiple ways to get to you quickly. And then her single target damage, if no one is around to bother you, her single target like full combo damage is decent when you're not worried about getting CC'd out of it. So her 1v1 is quite strong and very difficult to deal with for a lot of classes. For Solaire, I think she's okay. She has a lot of CCs. Her mobility is decent. Her protection is really good. Problem is her CCs aren't as threatening as some other classes. So it's not like the worst thing in the world to have a Kuno around trying to attack you. It's fairly easy to mitigate their CCs. And then when she does land a CC, she requires, like 100% requires her team to help her secure kills in Solaire. Her damage, mostly on unprotected skills, is just not quite good enough. So for example, if you catch someone, let's say with a grab, for instance, Shadow Stomp is all right damage and it's pretty quick. And then Wheel of Wrath is kind of all right damage and it's pretty quick. And then Spin Spree is like your big hitter, but nothing else. It's really difficult. It's not super reliable, I guess, when comboing someone in Solaire. Really both protected and unprotected. But when you squeeze in that one unprotected ability on a lot of classes, it can feel really powerful. For example, Succession DK, when you use Enforcement, it hits super hard. Or even on Suck Kuno, when you use Prime Shadow Stomp with runes or Wheel of Wrath, it hits super hard, so it can feel really good. But Awakening doesn't really have that. So it's very, very just middle of the road damage. So I think it's okay in Solaire, but there's a lot of classes that just do a lot more damage and also have good mobility and good CCs. So I think relative to other classes, she falls off a bit, but she's not unplayable or anything. And then for Node War and stuff, I mean, it really depends on the guilds you're fighting. Ball v Ball, she's totally useless. But if you're playing in one of these games, one of these Node Wars or Sieges, and they're kind of rare these days, where a flex team actually matters for getting cannons and flags and putting pressure on smaller groups, she's quite good. But then in just large group settings, she falls off. Like the more people in a group, the less effective she's going to be. And then for GVGs, it's kind of the same thing. If the GVG starts out small, she's really good, can be strong. The bigger it gets, the worse she becomes.
Understand. Witch and Wizards go on top of and heal. All assassin class has to stay back.
Yeah.
May you please give us a bit information about Succession PvE?
Yeah, so Succession Pvs at low-end spots, very good. High-end spots, it's okay. When it got the PvP nerfs a couple months ago, it also affected PvE, unfortunately, and increased the cooldown of Flash Slash, which is one of our harder hitting abilities, and then also made the stamina management very difficult in PvE. So one of the reasons why Suck Kuno used to do good damage is because you basically could guarantee you're going to always have back attacks, and now you can't because you run out of stamina, so you have to sit and hit the front of mobs a lot more than you used to. Endgame spots, like, she's just average. She's just very, very middle. If you go to Trolls, you can kind of get decent numbers. If you go to Hex, it's a little bit tougher. At Zakkary, she can be really good, especially if you have high gear and overgear the place. And then at Gyfin, she feels pretty good as well. So it's just very, very middle.
We talked about Succession got nerfed. Let's talk about Succession PvP. What changed after nerf? 1v1, 1vx, 5v5, and large scale.
All right, so this one's a lot harder to evaluate because it really depends on the players you're playing against. I've talked a lot with Reezy and Nihilus about this, who are two very, very good PvP Succession Kunos. I think the biggest issue is, so what the nerfs did is they increased the cooldown of Flash Slash from 9 seconds to 12 seconds. They made it so Flash Slash locks your stamina. They added a stamina cost to Tenon Cutter, added a stamina cost to Dance Macabre. They shortened the distance of Tenon Cutter, the teleport. So most of the stuff was fine. It's just the problem is because they did so many stamina nerfs in one single patch, it made it the Kuno is on a clock now. You have about a 10-second window where you get to play somewhat aggressive, and if your opponent can survive that 10-second window, you're on the back foot until one of you two dies. I think the playstyle became partly just really unfun for a lot of people, so that's kind of the result of the nerfs, in my opinion. Now, it needed to be nerfed because it was way too strong. I just think they took it one, and I underestimated it too, because my initial reaction was that it would be totally fine, but I think they took it one stamina cost too far. I think nerfing the stamina on 3 abilities and locking 1 would have been fine, but the 4th was just too much. So either like if Dance recovered stamina or Tenon Cutter or Flash Slash. The difficulty with the stamina is that you don't have super armor abilities like other classes. For example, Awaken Hash is another one where you can burn yourself out of stamina really quick, but you have a lot of super armor to recover your stamina. And this class doesn't have that. It doesn't have forward guard abilities to recover stamina. It doesn't have super armor. So you're relying only on your S block to recover stamina or hiding in concealment. Problem is your S block, when a player knows how to play against Kuno, your S block actually doesn't recover stamina if people are hitting you. So even when you're out of stamina and all you can do is S block, even that doesn't guarantee you're going to recover stamina, because Kuno's S block is unique in that it starts draining stamina when it's being hit. It's the only block in the game that does that. So yeah, I would say going through the different game modes, 1v1, I still think it can be quite good. And a lot of people have a hard time with it. And in a 1v1, you can try to conserve your stamina and just play mostly passive or reactive. But against really good 1v1 classes that don't have issues with cooldowns or have less of an issue with stamina, like for example, Succession DK or Zakkary Awaken Ninja, they can burn you out of stamina really quickly and put a lot of pressure on you and win. So I think she's still pretty good at 1v1. In Solaire, I also still think she's like pretty good, because her damage is good and it just very much relies on your team. So I've been playing a lot of Succession and Solar lately, and I find if my teammates can survive without me for long stretches of time, then Sakuno can be really effective. If my teammates can't survive without me in a 2v3 for 10-15 second bursts or intervals, then she really struggles because I just don't have stamina to help out. A lot of the times I'll get a CC, or my teammate will get a CC, and all my skills are grayed out because almost all of them cost stamina to use. So I'm not actually able to contribute damage. If I can sit there and rest or hide in concealment for a long time and my teammates land a CC, then she can be really effective at contributing damage. So that's Solaire. So I think she's decent but not great. And I know like Reezy and a lot of other Kunos are frustrated by it because you just get stammed out by a lot of these. When there's 3 players that are good on multiple classes, it's just so difficult to stay in the fight and help your team. Large scale, it's kind of the same deal with as Awakening. I mean, if you're playing against a team with a flex for Node War, then it's going to be great because she can fight really well in flex, and concealment lets you hide and wait out until you're ready to go in, and then you can go in and do some burst damage and CCs. So it's kind of the same thing. The more people there are, the worse she becomes. But if there's smaller fights or smaller objectives you can go for, then she could be pretty strong.
Thank you. So we're talking after about Kunoichi. Let's talk about game itself. What do you think about BDO for current situation from past until now?
I mean, I think the game overall is much better today, and I do think a lot of people take it for granted because we're used to getting patches every week, and I think a lot of people want the game to be really good, and there's a lot of things that Pearl Abyss misses out on that could be a lot better that are really simple changes. Like just simple things people have been wanting and asking for a long time that Pearl Abyss can be really stubborn on for no reason. For example, resists in the game, or like people not being able to get out of V, or for some classes being really bad in PvE while others are good in PvE for long stretches, stuff like that. So I think overall the game is better. I do think though a lot of people, especially with the introduction of Solaire, a lot more people care about PvP right now than they used to, because Node War has been very dull for a long time, and the whole Node War scene is really in trouble in general, and unless Perlibus does something about it. I think the game mode's not fun. Time to kill isn't fun. But people have always just been like, well, it's a PvE game. But now that Solaire is out and there's equalized PvP, I think people care a lot more about PvP, and people are really starting to see the issues with how much protection is in the game, where because everyone has so much super armor and forward guard, it feels like you need to have a grab, or your class isn't good, or you need to be able to kill people standing up, or your class isn't good. I think Perlibus has a lot of big problems on their hands, like a lot of fires that they need to put out, but I think that they're fixable if Perlibus is willing to actually fix them. So overall, it's funny because the game is better than it used to be for sure, especially if you don't care about PvP. Like if you just PvE, like there's a couple dungeons, the grind spots have become a lot less mundane than they used to be. Gear progression has become easier. You can buy everything off the market today you didn't used to be able to. So a lot of the systems and quality of life stuff in the game is definitely better, and it's because the season's a lot better for newer players. But when it comes to PvP, while it is technically better overall, there's a lot of things that are better about the game in PvP. There's also a lot of problems that, now that people care about PvP in a competitive sense, these problems need to be addressed and fixed.
If you have a chance to add new feature to BDO or change something, what would it be?
Okay, so this is kind of two-part. If I could add something straight up from scratch, the idea of what they described with the deep sea tower, I think they called it Tower of the Deep Sea or something like that, where you basically go into a zone where you start fighting fairly easy to kill mobs, you clear through it, you get rewards, you go to the next zone, clear through that, and go on, and it gets more and more difficult. I think that would be really fun in this game, and would also take some of the boringness out of the game, especially if they let you start off at checkpoints once you've gone far. Give you some checkpoints to start at, because what they said, the way they described the end of the tower, or I guess it technically is endless, but the way they described what would happen is eventually it would get to a point where it's too hard and you risk dying, and if you die you lose half the loot that you gained. So it's like a decision you make, like, do I want to risk it, go in and get a little bit of extra loot, or stay back and save my loot because I might die and then end up not getting as much money as I was going to get. I that people would love something like that in the game. I think it would be really fun to do that. So I would add that for sure to change things, and I'm going to talk about this forever until BDO and Perlibus fixes it, but resists just have absolutely no place in this game. Resists are bad for the game, they're bad for classes, they're bad for balance, they make balancing difficult, they make people frustrated and angry all the time when they don't work, they make people frustrated and angry all the time when they do work. So there is zero positive about resistances, and the counter argument a lot of people make is like, well, my class sucks without resistances, I'd get CC'd so easily, and the answer to that is then Perlibus needs to fix that. Resists cannot be the crutch. RNG should not be in the game, because it's a very unfun and frustrating mechanic that only upsets people, and I don't understand why Perlibus would actively choose to keep a system in the game that upsets their player base so much. It makes zero sense to me. Resistances need to be removed from the game entirely.
So what are your advices for newbie or returnee or whoever wants to reroll to Kunoichi?
I mean, just have fun with it. My thing in this game is whatever class you choose. A lot of people like to choose based on balance from the start, and I think that does matter a little bit for PvE especially, but for PvP, good players make a lot of classes that are supposedly not good, very good. If you want to try hard to be competitive in PvP with any class, then pick the class that you like. So if you're picking Kunoichi, yeah, you have a lot of options. There's a lot of people that are really, really down on Kunoichi right now, but can still make it work and have fun with it. So my advice would just be have fun and play what you enjoy.
Thank you. We are coming towards the end of the interview, and is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, so for the record, do not think that I am a master class Kunoichi. I just want that to be said. I think if you're looking at an Awakened Kunoichi, Kitna is significantly better. People like Nudes and Sluzzy are much better, and same for Succession. I think Reezy and Nihilus both are much better than I am, but I am honored that you invited me anyway. I appreciate that. So thank you so much for having me. I hope people get something out of the interview.
I want to say thank you to you because you accept my invitation. And guys, please check Frosty's Twitch. He always streaming and he's one of the best streamers of BDO world. I'm lurking his stream, sometimes being Pepaga in his chat, and it's really fun. Go and watch his stream, visit him. You can ask about Kunoichi, maybe Assassin. He has enough experience about Assassin. At least answer the questions from newbies. I want to say thank you so much you visit here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Alright guys, do not forget, BDO is just a game. Have a nice game.